The mystery school is something very ancient that has survived kind of the tests of times when it comes to sharing tools that are beneficial for human progression, to bring more light to humans, to help humans to embody and anchor light in their daily lives. Spiritual independence is very important. It's like a muscle that grows over time, And as a guide, of course, I do have this responsibility because I have the possibility of sharing tools that can really support people in their progression. Now, if I choose to hold it back and just hide, it's a pity because then people will not find out that it exists.
So, hello, Cecile Tanmaya.
Hi, Philippe.
Hello, and welcome to the listeners to another show of The Love of Your Life, it's called. And it's the first time I'll do this in English and also the first time online. Usually I have this, we're sitting at a table and I have this cozy space, and now we have a broad space, but we'll make it cozy anyway. So, Cecile, maybe I just introduce why we're here, why I asked you. I'm very glad that you came. And it was last year that I had more topics, but two main topics last year was one is saying fully yes to life.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt that I didn't do that. Maybe I was at 85% or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And also mystery schools came every time by. And so I was looking for a mystery school, and I was looking for most genuine, maybe, or authentic. And then I encountered your website, and it started with the life activation.
Yeah.
So me saying yes to life activation, I thought, okay, this is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I went to London where you was heading, and I had this live activation and some classes already from the mystery school. And then I came back in, I think it was April this year, maybe May, to do another set of classes.
Mm-hmm.
And now I just returned 2 weeks ago from 8 days of classes in mystery school. So I'm really engaged into the mystery school, and you're my guide.
Yes. Yes.
Because in the mystery school, you get a guide.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know how far you are in the school, but we will figure out. So thank you for being here, Cecile. Maybe you can tell something about yourself.
Thank you, Philippe. I actually didn't know exactly how this had come about. Like, I knew you found the website, but I didn't know, how you had found me. So this is exciting, for me. So a few words about me. I mean, I found the mystery schools totally through coincidence myself, because I was always searching, for, I guess, the meaning of life, the purpose of life, because I thought, of course, we can be successful, we can do things, but why are we here? What am I here to do? Like, especially considering all the suffering that I experienced, that I saw around me and other people, like how can I make a difference? That was kind of always the question I had, growing up, and then also as a teenager or as a young adult. And so I searched in different ways. And one of those searches led me down trying to help others through things like, social entrepreneurship or fair trade and things like that. But then I realized, actually, for true help to happen, it has to be something that the person seeks out themselves. And it has to be something that they even want. Because what I realized, when I was trying to help others, that sometimes I wanted to help them more than they wanted to help themselves. And so that was kind of a big finger back to myself, where I realized, okay, if that's the case, then I think maybe I actually have to start with myself. So that kind of led me back to me and trying to understand more about who I am and what I can do to heal myself initially. That's kind of where it started. And then from there, exploring lots of different modalities. One day I came across the life activation. I was already a therapist that day, and I was already working with people. And yeah, I tried it. I got the life activation. And I was like, oh, that's kind of something happened, you know? I mean, I'm going right into it, Philippe, but
Yeah. It's okay.
and something happened, and I got curious about what it might have been, but not curious enough to go too deep into it. I was just like, yeah, I have my tools that work, but this was a nice add-on. But then I kind of did the initiation into the lineage, and I started using the tools that we use, which are called rituals. And those rituals really shifted something for me. I felt like, wow, my energetic boundaries, like the way I can absorb energy around me, the way I can use my psychic skills, the way I can connect to the light above, all that kind of started changing in a gradual and subtle way. But there was a noticeable difference. And that's kind of, that's kind of how it all started. And where I started opening up to the possibility of something like a mystery school actually existing.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, great. But you've mentioned some things that will need some explanation. I'll start with the first thing. What is a life activation? Because I talked about it, you talked about it.
Yeah.
Is that?
So the life activation, so actually one simple way of saying is I use a stick and a rock and I do a healing with that. You receive a healing through that kind of, with that tool. But another way of saying it, actually what it does is it connects you to your, what we say, your higher self, your wisdom self, the part of you that actually is eternal. And it does that by shifting and cleansing different layers out of your nervous system, your emotions, your understanding of who you are in a very subtle and gentle way. So it's a 90-minute, it's a 1-hour session with a bit of talk before and after, 90-minute, and it's a private session. And, there's a rebalancing that happens in that session, the energy bodies, the chakras, the aura, everything gets rebalanced. Sometimes I describe it like almost like an MOT, like we say in English, like when you get your car checked. It's an energetic checkup,
Yeah.
It's like a checkup of all the things and a rebalancing of all the energy bodies. And then that activation happens, which, it's done once. You don't actually need to repeat it. And the light flows in and activates 12 different points that are responsible for things like our connection to our higher self, our nervous system, our emotions. And so there a healing starts, a healing starts. And,
Yeah. Well, you say a light flows in.
Yeah.
And I find it always very interesting. What is light then? And what, I mean, it's been in a lot of topics during my podcast, but I like to maybe ask you for you, what is light then?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a very experiential person. So of course I can explain it with like potentially intellectual concepts, but my experience of light is literally that when I close my eyes and I'm in a room that holds more light, I see light. I guess some people sense, some people feel, some people hear, some people see, in a spiritual way. Like we talk about spiritual senses. But for me, when I close my eyes and I work with healing light, I literally see it's almost like there's a light switched on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in other way, we could say it's the life force. It's the creative energy. It's life, life is light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you think that there's this funny thing happened with me because I think it's been 2 weeks that I got initiated the last time.
Yes.
And since then, people on the street come to me. In the supermarket, children talk to me like out of the blue.
Yes.
Not that it happens hundreds of times, but it's significant.
Yeah.
Is that has it something to do with light then, you think?
Yeah, 100%. That's how I experience it too, like it's actually a very good way of testing something, like animals, children, how they react to you in that moment is an indication of where we are, energetically. And And their radar is really high when it comes to that, because they don't intellectualize it. They just sense the energy as it is, And that was also my experience, like babies in the tube would just stare at me, or like, obviously they like to do that anyway, but more so than there was a shift. There definitely was a shift.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, well, that's about it. Maybe for now, for what is a life activation, we could talk hours. But then again, it's all about the mystery school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what is then mystery school? And this one, the modern mystery school, is a special one, I think. So maybe can you explain something about that?
I mean, yeah, the mystery school is something very ancient that has survived kind of the tests of time when it comes to sharing tools that are beneficial for human progression. And there's actually many mystery schools. There's not just one mystery school, but in a way there is one, because they all work together. The true mystery schools, they're not in competition, like today it's in the matrix. In the business world, it's like, oh, one company, another company. But with the mystery schools, it's different. They want to complement each other. They want to supplement. So we have ancient lineages that have been around for a very long time, and that all have that same purpose of supporting the progression of humans, to bring more light to humans, to help humans to embody and anchor light in their daily lives. But some schools will have more of a focus of doing that outside of society, like, in the Tibetan mountains, like remote, like in the mountains. And the people who practice in those schools will never actually have a life like a normal life. They want families or things like that. They'll dedicate their life to this work. And then some other schools or lineages are more suited to be actually used for people who are part of society, and always have been in that way. And so then that's the kind of tradition I was trained in, and it's a hermetic lineage, or we also call it a lineage that's coming from King Solomon, not because he invented it, but because he contributed to the structuring of the knowledge that, as it is used today. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I found that part of King Solomon very interesting. So I'm diving into books now.
Oh, yes.
Also, he had a great temple. Do you know the temple of?
Yes, of course. Yes, it's also called the first temple.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you know things about King Solomon that is interesting to tell, or?
It's interesting because obviously we can research a lot online, right? And even with ChatGPT and those things today, it's easy to get like access to information that maybe was a bit more hidden in the past. But at the same time, what's interesting is that the true knowledge of the mystery schools remains hidden despite the fact that we have access to so much knowledge. And partially that is because a lot of the ancient texts, including maybe even the Bible, have been edited, you could say, over time, So we're not really reading the original versions of those texts by any means, of course, right? Because there's always, there were different agendas that influenced like those texts. So it's a bit hard to, but of course you find traces, you find traces in the books of, like, for sure they'll describe King Solomon as someone who had many wives, who had worked with many different cultures, who brought different religions into his tradition. But my way of connecting with this lineage over time has been, again, through my experience.
Yeah.
Because I think, as Manly P. Hall puts it, Manly P. Hall was another initiate in this tradition, And he has a quote that I really like, where he said that my years of research among the records of olden peoples available in libraries, museums, and shrines of ancient cultures has convinced me that there exists in the world today, and has existed for thousands of years, a body of enlightened humans united in what might be termed an order of the quest. So what I like about this sentence is that a body of enlightened humans united in what might be termed an order of the quest, meaning that, yes, they might be part of different organizations that work in similar ways, but they're united in their mission, united in that quest of bringing more light, bringing more opportunities to humans to the degree that it's possible at that point in time. Right. And so through my own connection with the tools of the lineage, using them, and then through those initiation, connecting to the initiates that came before me, because that's kind of what happens when we get initiated into a lineage. In a way, we start feeling the people that came before us. And I felt that thread, I felt that thread through my own experience. And that's my reference point. And then when I read books now, sometimes I'm like, are you sure that's true? I basically ask myself, and I have that possibility of taking a bit of distance from the knowledge, because the knowledge has been, as we know, edited, right? So there's that.
Wow. Yeah, but that's also a thing that I like is in the mystery school, they say it's all about also discernment.
Yeah.
To truly feel what you think, what you can sense is right.
Yes. It's interesting, because it's interesting that we need a structure and we need a guide, or we need a training to get to that discernment. But the objective of the structure and the training is, unlike in other organizations, the objective is to teach you how to do it for yourself rather than teaching you what you should think. It actually sharpens your senses, your spiritual senses, and they're like your compass, right? Like if you, I remember as a child already, or as a teenager, I used to love reading. And I used to pick my books not from the cover, but from like going to the library and just intuitively sensing the energy of the book and picking it like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it's something that we can sharpen over time, like how to use that. And this is we get much more information that way than if we take just the mind, right? But that doesn't mean you need to exclude the mind. We just,
Well, sometimes I'm in some kind of discussion with myself, because sometimes I can sense that maybe it's not for me.
Yeah.
But then should I just go there because I sense that, or should I just stay away?
Yeah, that's such a good question, isn't it? Such a good question.
Because sometimes if there's a resentment, you maybe have something to do with yourself about that. I don't know.
Yes. Can you explain that? I'm not 100% sure I understood what
you... Well, I this year started with a coach and had a bit of resentment. Then I said, okay, just go, because maybe you will learn something about this energy, what's not flowing right now.
Yes.
But in the end, I quit. So maybe I should have listened. I don't know.
It's so interesting, that choice, isn't it? Because sometimes the discomfort or the confrontation with ourselves that we experience is a growth. There's a growth in it.
Exactly.
And so then that can feel sometimes very similar to, actually, this doesn't feel right for me. So I understand it's really an edge, isn't it? And so that's part of knowing ourselves, right? When is my ego tricking me into believing something's not good for me so it can survive? Right? Because the ego is so clever at doing that. But ultimately, that's also a little bit why we need a path or like a structure. But the structure never should have an opinion. So that's kind of a good way of discerning, right? So the structure is there, and it serves you by kind of creating that little bit of compression that you need to make whole into diamond. You could think of it like that, right? But it never tells you, oh, you need to be more like this, or you need to be more like that. That is something that comes from your own experience of facing that structure that reflects back to you who you are. That's kind of how a true path of progression works, And so the additional, let's say the initiations, you can think of them almost like there's like we have the higher light above our crown that we're all connected to. But now through the initiation, it's like that flow of light gets amplified and how it comes through our system, and then over time, we then start embodying that light, and then it will start shining into our subconscious, shining its light into our belief systems. maybe even to our relationships, and reflecting back to us where maybe we were avoiding ourselves, where maybe we needed to overcome a fear of doing something, or try a new way of doing something, or basically all those ways where we stay in the comfort zone because we avoid the growth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, that's nice.
Mm.
And we also say, I'm God,
Yes. Yes.
meaning you're also God.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
a really nice way to look at it, in sense, like if you don't like anybody or somebody,
Yeah. Yeah.
knowing that it's God also, it's like it softens your heart, like,
Yeah.
but in the end, there still is a God above, or not? Is there a creator, or what would you say?
I mean, I don't want to go too much into like teachings or things like that, but of course, I mean, it's almost like my experience of it has always been, and many people that I work with, when I asked who is God, their first question is something like a source, like everything, or in the Kabbalah, we say everything and nothing. It's like so vast that we can't even kind of fully comprehend with the human mind the vastness of it. But everyone, at least that comes to me, I guess most people who come to me have some sense of spiritual connection, will describe it in similar ways. But then, of course, we also have the understanding that God is us. God is, we are God's in training, you could say, or like we're learning how to create as creator gods, because the reality that we manifest, individually and collectively, is we contribute to that through our awareness, through our kind of thoughts, our emotions. What we send out into the field has an effect, which is you know, what requires a lot of personal mastery, because we all, of course, have good intentions. And sometimes we think that by posting something, like being angry about some injustice in the world, will help that injustice. But actually, by projecting more anger into the situation, we actually adding more fire in a way, almost to. So we are learning as initiates how to hold peace, not to kind of pretend that injustices aren't happening, because that's not what happened. Clearly, a lot of injustice is happening, but how to stay in a state of peace despite the fact that injustice is happening, so that we can actually send the energy out that we are trying to create. And then sometimes if you're in the position where you can make a difference, where you can set the boundary, when you can, be the warrior and say no to something, then of course do that. But there's many situations where we can't, where we just observe us in a bigger scheme of things. And there it doesn't help to project anger.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, I think it's one of the principles of Hermetic principles, like spirit above matter, or is
Spirit
that?
above matter, or like basically all is mind, and God is mind, and we create through our mind. But the mind that we talk about there, it's not the human mind, the cluttered mind, but it's a much bigger mind. And what I find interesting when I translate sometimes into, let's say, French or German, because I teach in other languages, is that, I'm sorry if I'm deviating a bit, but in English you have a word that is mind and you have a word that is spirit. But in German and French, and I don't know how it is in Dutch, maybe you'll tell me, but there is mind, you would translate it as, in French, esprit, which is also the same word as spirit. It's the same, and it's same in German.
Yeah.
Geist.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And would you say that podcast is called The Love of Your Life?
Mm-hmm.
What is it, the love of your life, except from your husband and your child?
Yes, of course, they are definitely my love. My love, my life, I think, is growth, progression in some way, and facilitating progression both within myself and others. And I think it's like an alchemical process that just fascinates me. It's just never ending, because it doesn't end, right? I can almost see this evolving spiral, almost that similar to the DNA, or like one triangle, or could say Jacob's ladder, like that evolving triangle. And it's kind of that life, the life that comes with that's what fascinates me. Yeah. And when I was younger, I used to love studying like humans through books, because when you read books, you don't see just what they say and what they do, but you also see what's happening inside of them, because it's disclosed, right, in a good book. Yeah. And at least that's what I would have described a good book at the time. And yeah, it's life, humans, growth. I love.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. And there's also a lot of magic.
Yes. Yes, magic. Yeah, I mean, magic is the ingredient to that growth, right? For me, it's like kind of how to facilitate that, but at the same time, it's also the building blocks of that, of who we are. So it's not outside of us; it's inside of us already. That's the amazing thing, Like the sacred geometry, the way cells and nature and everything in the world is formed, that those patterns, those patterns that form life. It's like that. That is what we're learning to work with when we do true magic, true progressional magic. How to bring that back to its purest state of alignment.
Can you evolve a bit more about that? Or is it maybe too complicated for now?
No, not at all. I'm just thinking where to go with it. It's almost like, when we are working with sacred geometry, which is a big part of what we do in the lineage, we work with sacred geometry a lot. I mean, some classes are called sacred geometry and some classes are called something else, but even when they call something else, sacred geometry is an element in it. It's because it's what we use to create. You could say it's the divine language of creation. And so when we learn how to reattune ourselves to those frequency of purity that is held in the true sacred geometry shapes, it kind of accelerates our inner growth and that natural realignment to a frequency that is already innate within us. Right? Because you were saying the children feel more attracted to you after you received initiation, because they recognize, oh, this is a resonance. There's a resonance, right? And that's what sacred geometry creates.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And but would you say that no. I would another way what is enlightenment? Is that something that is that a goal for a human being, or is that just a result maybe, or is it nothing? I don't know.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. What is enlightenment? Like, I mean, enlightenment is ultimately, my definition of it will be to come to a place where you are one with God, when we're one with your understanding of being a divine being. And in that journey, in mystic traditions, we say that this happens through service.
Yeah.
Through service to others, through helping others understand their own divine potential, that awakens others, and therefore reminds us that we are all one,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's not an individual goal in a way, it's actually a collective goal. And if we have this goal for us individually, then it's because we know maybe deep down that it matters, because if we go towards the light, it will encourage others to go towards the light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that because I was looking into different paths of the mystery school, and one is the ritual master path, and there's a moment and you sign for responsibility that you have willingly chosen and asked for.
Yes.
So is that what you mean? Like you have this there comes a time then you have to serve and say yes to that responsibility.
Yeah. With great power comes with great responsibility, right? And so when we choose to receive more initiations at a certain point, like the initial initiations on the paths, like open to everyone and they'll benefit anyone, like whatever, whatever they want to do in their life. And some people have used it to create amazing systems, like Rudolf Steiner, with his education system, or how to say, I'm thinking the farming system, the way he developed that was better for the land, for the farms.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he developed that came from this, and then also Carl Jung, with his research and all that. So these are kind of people use that for their work and to bring new systems out into the world that would help. But at the same time, there is also a responsibility that comes at a certain point on the path when you receive higher initiations that give you even more power and also more awareness of yourself. But with that comes a responsibility to know how to use this power and to use it in a way that it benefits.
And how is that for you in your personal life?
So for me, in my personal life, I mean, it's kind of never felt like a burden because I've always had the desire to share. That was the first reason why I came to this path, was that I wanted to share, right? And to share the light with others. And I wanted to find something that would make a difference. So I was so excited when I found it. And yet sometimes, there might be that one day where I wake up like on the one side of the bed and I'm thinking, oh, I have a session today, and I'm like, oh, I'm a bit tired. But then I know that inner commitment that I've made to myself, and I show up and I do the session and I feel amazing, and the client feels amazing. And I know it was just that inner resistance that I needed to overcome within myself. And I think it's very important that we are clear that any of those empowerments or sessions that we choose to do is something we choose to do for ourselves. It's never something that should be done because someone else wanted you to do it, because a family member or a friend or whatever. And that's also why we would never initiate children, right? Because a child needs to know for themselves if that's something they want to do. And they can't because they're so influenced still by the parents, right? If you ask my daughter today, she'd probably say, yes, sure, I'll get initiated because she's my daughter and she sees me do this work. But I would want her to know for sure that this is what she wants, right? And so I'd wait until she's a teenager and then she can make that choice for her life. And because choice is at the core of everything in true spiritual progression. Because if someone else makes the choice for you, then you haven't grown.
Yeah. And also I think it's called like spiritual independence.
Yes, spiritual independence. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Spiritual independence is very important. And it's something, it's like a muscle that grows over time, And so for me as a guide, of course, I do have this responsibility because I have the possibility of sharing tools that can really support people in their progression. Now, if I choose to hold it back and just hide,
Yeah,
it's a pity because then people will not find out that it exists. And then they won't have the choice to choose it if they seek it. So that's kind of part of...
And what is for you then, what do you see when you give live activations? Do you really see life changing?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I had some, the life activation is like that sometimes it will have an immediate fruit. And in some other cases, it takes a bit longer. But there's always a positive shift. Like, I almost describe it like if you had two parallel lines and then one shifts a little bit, the outcome in the end it can be very different. But of course, we don't have two parallel lines because once we had the life activation, it's changed. So we can't really say exactly how the life would have progressed without it. But that's my scientist mind talking. But I've seen just too many things happen that were quite immediate, where you're like, I would be surprised if that was a coincidence,
Yeah.
Like once I had like a client come in, she had I didn't know that about her. She had an issue with her leg and she was about to have surgery because her leg was blocked or something. And she had a big issue with her cycle as well. And she did the life activation. And then literally afterwards, she could walk completely normally. and she didn't have to have the surgery. And I mean, that's not the typical benefit I would advertise for the life activation at all, because it typically works more like emotional, mental, nervous system things. But there was a connection there, and that kind of resolved it for her. So, I had a few moments like that where it was like undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
And then my scientist mind, because I resisted the fact that it was working at first. I was trained as a scientist, then as a therapist. And so I liked to have a logical explanation for why something was doing something. And in this case, there isn't. There really isn't.
Yeah. So then it's magic.
Then it's magic. Yeah, it's magic. But I've learned to lean into that flow of the experience of magic, which through that, I started to build my relationship with it, Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it also works on the environment, because I spoke to someone in London last time, and she said my husband changed, but he didn't do the life activation, but he changed positively then. So that's amazing.
So he didn't receive it, but he changed.
Yeah.
Because she received it. Is that, that definitely is. Well, it's probably more of a response, because her energy shifted and he probably feels more relaxed in some ways around her, probably. That is quite common, actually, very common. And that people notice the change.
Yeah.
And say, you've changed.
So how do you deal with the fact that you would like maybe to activate everybody on the whole planet?
I think that's probably how I felt after I came out of Healers Academy. Do you feel like that?
No.
But
I had that before, but
you had that before. It's kind of softened for me. It's not like that so much anymore, where I feel like I have to activate. Sometimes I get the itch. Let's say I'm in a situation where I'm someone who's saying something, or that you can tell they're really struggling, and then I'm like, yeah, that would really help them. And then if I can, wherever I can, sometimes I don't do it. Like I had it once where the flight attendant came and served me, and I was like, oh, I could feel what was going on in it. I was like, oh, I wish I brought some cards. Maybe I should just left him a card. Not for me to give him the life, for anyone, but I could feel would have served him. But some cases I've held back, but most cases,
don't you think that's dangerous in a way? Because I had the situation, someone came by and she was really not well 2 days ago. And of course, first thing in my mind is maybe we can do a life activation.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, it's me proposing something. It's not that the person knows about it and then say, well, this is for me. So in my proposing, and maybe also in the expectation, then oh, it's gonna change a lot for me. Then I don't know. I find it hard. I didn't. Yeah. Well, in the end, I said something. Maybe you can look at my website.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I feel like if you don't tell them, then they will not know it exists.
No.
And then they won't have the choice to choose it. So that's why I tend to say, I tend to say, but then I also say what it is. And then whoever feels called to try it, they feel called to try it,
Yeah.
And then that's still their choice, because me mentioning the fact that it exists doesn't take away them deciding to do it. It's kind of
exactly.
two different things.
Yeah.
It's two different things, but equally, that intuition, it's something to follow, and it's sacred for me in a way. It's sacred, but I sense that some people are, it's almost like an open, like you put something, like I put something in my hand, right? I just was playing with this thing, and then they can take it or not, but my hand is open. I don't like hide it,
Really nice way to say it. Yeah. Yeah. I gave her a stone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what times are we living in, Cecile?
That's crazy times, isn't it? So much happening at the moment. It's nuts. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, this might be topic for another podcast, I think, but it's a time of a lot of change. And I think we've seen so much change accelerating since since that 2020, 2021, around that time when COVID, like we say it's COVID, but so many other things happened at the same time energetically on the planet since then. So we're kind of going through a big collective and individual transformation, and the light really supports during that time. So which is why these tools become even more relevant at this time for those who seek them. It's not everyone who will want that, but some people will look for ways to support themselves through these times.
And how do you manage to stay balanced, or do you not manage?
I mostly manage. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the balance comes for me, like the tools of the lineage, like the rituals. We call them rituals. They're like little ceremonies that you do for yourself in the morning that rebalance the energies, the chakras, the aura, so you can stay in the flow of the light, be positive when you go out into the world, when you're faced with all the horrors and the news and all that. So we don't have to avoid the reality as it is, because, that's not going to help change anything either, but we can be in the world, of the world, without becoming affected by the vibration that is around us. That is so key. And so there's tools of sacred geometry, Kabbalah, and some other shamanistic or more earth-based rituals that we can use to rebalance,
Yeah. Because maybe just a little topic about what you mentioned, Kabbalah. There are different topics in mystery school. Maybe there's Kabbalah, obviously, but also healing academy and ritual masters and alchemy. I don't know.
Yes.
Hermetics.
Yeah. Sacred geometry, lots of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have lots of paths of study, and all the main traditions, the main lineages will have had that kind of. You can think of it almost like a mystery school is like a big tree with lots of branches, and those branches are all connected to that one core, but they're like areas that you can specialize in, but at the same time they are all part of that one. And so while we have a path, but we are paths of initiations. So in the mystery traditions, we work with initiation to anchor the light, like I said earlier. And that's where we can study as a healer, amplify energy so we can hold more energy and serve others with that light. That's kind of the path of the healer.
Yeah.
And that is, the one that is always where we start. We always start with first empower thyself, that first initiation where we learn how to heal ourselves through the kind of tools that I described, the rituals that we can do on a daily basis to connect us to the light. They heal the disconnect. But what is the disconnect? It's the disconnect between the mind and the spirit, between the physical and the spirit. So we can bring everything back together and be in harmony, with the energies of the universe, the energies of nature, and from there it creates like a platform for our own growth. And that platform actually never ends. That first initiation, in a way, it's kind of the most important initiation. It's the one that takes us all the way to the highest initiations, but it's the foundation of knowing ourselves. And then we learn at Healers Academy how to serve others, how to bring the light through the life activation, which is amazing, incredible tool, an incredible 5 days. It's a very, very deep work and very healing, and at the same time very light. It doesn't need to be heavy, which is really interesting.
No, that's true. That's true. Because I've done stuff where also people were traumatized, and then all sad things happens, comes out, and well, or maybe that the people that attend this are maybe more spiritual, bit mature or emotional mature, so they can hold their own space.
Yes.
So, and of course, there's a tier, and that's not much.
Sure. Yeah, there's tiers, but actually, in a way, the tools of the lineage encourage this individual empowerment. So we don't become dependent on an external healer or a guru or someone else to fix us, but we learn how to be with whatever's coming up for ourselves. by ourselves. And there's a lot of healing that comes from that because, we become our own healer.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Would there be a topic that you think that we should talk about now?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'd love to hear and feel the questions that people may have, around this time.
We can do a live version
But one
one
day,
day.
yes. Let me see. I feel like we've covered so much.
Yeah.
I think maybe the one thing to understand about this path and this journey overall is that it's a very incremental thing. Maybe now where you are now, you might already have forgotten how you felt when you first started. Maybe not, but I definitely forgot. But we can't take that for granted because it's important to not think too far ahead on this path, but to do one step at a time.
I
Because we
know,
probably,
Cecile. I keep asking questions and wait. What is this?
oh, what is this? Yeah, exactly. What is this? What is
So
that? Like,
I'm always, no, you don't have to answer, but
yes,
for the audience, I always attracted to signs or stuff and I don't even know why. I think maybe it's a remembrance or something. And then, yeah, and like this is really something for me.
this
I
is
don't know what
calling
it
you.
is.
Yeah, well, I have a feeling you'll find out, but
Yeah,
we'll see. But meanwhile, what I meant is that, with the life activation, it's like that's the first step. And it's funny, but it does create a fertile ground for any further learning. So interestingly, oftentimes when I talk to people about empowered self before they've had the life activation, it's almost like they couldn't hear me. And then the next time when I talk to them again, they're like, "Oh, I don't think we talked about this before." Because it's almost like if you haven't done the first step, it's harder to be ready for the second step. And there's a reason. And all the research traditions have worked in this like incremental way,
yeah,
because it's a gradual opening of our awareness, which is very safe.
yeah, and that's maybe also why it's mystery in a sense that it's not disclosed because you first have to take some steps before you
Yes,
can
yes.
understand the other side. So
Yes.
that's in the beginning what I didn't understand, but now I understand because I felt it. And
Yeah.
it would be stupid for me now to start maybe a healers academy as a
As the
start.
first session, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you needed to do the other things to be ready
Yeah.
to do that. And so that's exactly how it works. And the thing is, interestingly, that, too much knowledge for which you're not ready at that point is actually harmful. It doesn't actually help because it's almost like your container is not ready to receive that flow of energy. And then it actually doesn't anchor in the right way. So it has to be prepared correctly, so that flow happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the life activation, I would say, is the first thing. And then just see. And the funny thing is that there's no rush because sometimes people come to me 3 years later and they'll say, "Oh, I've had the life activation 3 years ago. And now I think I want more." I'm like, "Okay, sure."
Yeah.
Just had a chat with someone like that yesterday.
So maybe we can wrap up and then do you? Yeah, well, I'll mention your website in show notes so people can find you in the UK. And now in the Netherlands, there's someone who can do it also.
Exactly. There's someone in the Netherlands. Yeah.
When I looked up last year, there was someone else, but he's gone in the list. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Maybe, yeah, because we do have a recertification, annual recertification, which is optional, obviously. But for those who are on the website, they've gone through that recertification because we know that they're still practicing. They know what they're doing. Yeah. That's kind of, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Cecile.
Okay, Philippe, it was wonderful to meet you.
Yeah, thank you.
Today and to have this chat. I always really enjoyed chatting to you. So, yeah. So
okay. You. Bye-bye.
Bye.